The city was just waking up. A soft drizzle brushed the windows of a small apartment above a noisy street. Watch this story till the end, because every soul who forgets one day remembers, and maybe tonight it's your turn. Inside, a woman named Samira sat alone at her kitchen table. The kettle whistled faintly. Bills lay scattered before her like small reminders of how much life had changed. Her husband had passed away 5 years ago. Her children had moved to other cities, and the laughter that once filled these rooms had turned to silence. The walls around her still carried traces of her old life. Family photos, a wedding portrait, a shelf of books. But behind a dusty vase, tucked in the corner of that shelf, sat something older than everything else. A worn leather Qur'an. Its golden edges had faded, but it still carried a quiet dignity. Her father had given it to her as a wedding gift. On the first page, he had written in careful Urdu, "To my daughter, that her home may always be blessed with the words of Allah." For years, that Qur'an was her morning companion. She would wake before dawn, wrap her shawl tight, and recite softly while the city still slept. Her children would stir at the sound. Her voice was their morning melody. But life had a way of crowding out the sacred. Bills, work, grief, and loneliness filled the hours once reserved for peace. Days became weeks, and weeks became years. One rainy morning, she counted what little money she had left. The electricity notice glared in red. She sighed, her hands trembling, and whispered, "How long can I live like this?" Her eyes wandered around the room until they rested on that shelf. The Qur'an sat there, untouched, unread, half hidden by time. Something inside her, perhaps desperation, perhaps blindness, whispered a thought she never imagined she'd hear. She stood slowly, reached for the Qur'an, and held it in her hands. "It's just a book," she murmured. "I have one on my phone now. Allah knows my heart." Her voice cracked, as though trying to convince herself. That evening, she wrapped the Qur'an in brown paper, slipped it into her handbag, and stepped out into the rain. The pavement glistened under flickering streetlights. She didn't know it yet, but she was walking toward the most painful mistake of her life. The bell above the pawn shop door gave a tired jingle as she stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and metal. Shelves crowded with forgotten things, watches that no longer ticked, tangled necklaces, faded coins. Behind the counter, an old man looked up from his ledger. "Can I help you?" he asked. Samira hesitated. "Yes, I have something to sell." He gestured toward the counter. "Let's see." Her fingers shook as she unwrapped the paper. The Qur'an lay there, quiet, luminous, alive. He frowned. "You're selling this?" "It's old," she said quickly. "I have another on my phone." He was silent. The golden calligraphy caught the shop light, faint but proud. Before leaving home, Samira had opened the drawer where her old jewelry lay. A few bangles, a silver bracelet, the last gifts from her husband. Her hand had hovered over them, then closed the drawer again. "Not those," she had whispered. "They're all I have left of him." So she told herself, the Qur'an could be replaced, the memories could not. "You know," the pawnbroker said softly, "I've bought many things, but never a Qur'an." "It's just for bills," she replied, voice shaking. "I have no one to help me." He nodded slowly. "Still, maybe you should think." "I've thought," she interrupted. "Please, how much?" He sighed, opened the book, and found her father's handwriting. "To my daughter." He paused. "This is personal." "It's just ink," she whispered. "Please." He wrote a small number on paper, slid it across the counter. "It's not much," he said. She didn't look. "I'll take it." He counted the notes, one by one. Each one landed like a stone in her heart. When she turned to leave, he called after her. "If you change your mind, it'll still be here." She forced a smile. "Thank you." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air felt colder. Her footsteps echoed down the wet pavement, light but hollow. That night, she sat by the window counting the money. Enough to keep the lights on, enough to quiet the fear, yet somehow, the room had never felt darker. She dreamed of her father that night, reciting under a lamp, his voice gentle but far away, as if separated by glass. When she woke before dawn, her heart was pounding. She reached for the Qur'an beside her bed and remembered it was gone. Her chest ached. She lay still for a long time, whispering, "Indeed, we sent down the Qur'an, and indeed, we will be its guardian." But her voice broke before the end, because she realized she hadn't guarded it. The next morning, the house felt heavy. She made tea, but it tasted of nothing. She turned on the TV, but heard nothing. Only one thought filled the silence: the Qur'an she had sold. By afternoon, guilt pressed down so hard she couldn't breathe. She took her prayer mat, spread it across the floor, and bowed her head. Tears soaked the fabric before she could finish the first rak'ah. "Ya Allah," she whispered, "I sold your book for light that will go out again. Forgive me." That night, she couldn't sleep. Her father's voice returned, steady, forgiving, familiar. And just before dawn, she made a decision. "I will bring it home," she said aloud, "even if I must sell everything else." She opened her drawer again, and this time she took out the jewelry. Her husband's bracelet, her wedding bangles, wrapped them carefully in cloth. By morning, she was walking toward the pawn shop once more. The streets were alive, but she was somewhere far inside herself. The bell rang as she entered. The same old man looked up. "You came back." He said softly, "Yes, I want it back. The Qur'an I sold yesterday." He turned to the shelves, searching. Few moments passed. Then his shoulders fell. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's gone." Her knees weakened. Gone? Gone. "A collector came last evening. He buys old Qur'ans. I tried to tell him it might be personal." Her eyes filled. "Do you know where?" He nodded slowly. "I have his name and a number." He called, explained, then handed her the phone. Her voice trembled. "Sir, the Qur'an you bought? It was mine. My father's gift. Please, I'll pay anything." There was a pause. Then the calm voice said, "Sister, I didn't buy it to sell. I bought it because I saw the note inside. I thought someone had forgotten its worth. Where do you live?" She told him. He was silent for a moment, then said, "Give me an hour." At home, she waited, hands clasped, heart racing. Each passing minute felt longer than the last. Then came a knock. A man stood at the door, coat damp with rain, holding a small parcel. "Assalamu alaikum," he said. "I believe this is yours." Samira froze. "You brought it back?" He smiled. A gift should return to the one meant to guard it. She took it in her trembling hands, unwrapped it, and there it was, her father's handwriting, untouched. She pressed it to her chest and wept, softly, then uncontrollably. The man waited, then said, "If you truly value it, read it again. Sometimes Allah tests us, not to take away, but to remind." She nodded through her tears. "I will." When she looked up again, he was gone. But peace, the kind she hadn't felt in years, had stayed behind. From that night onward, Samira's apartment felt alive again. Every morning she opened the Qur'an, and her voice filled the silence once more. Neighbors began to notice her smile. Children heard her recitation drift through the window, like a lullaby. One afternoon, the pawn shop owner saw her in the market. He smiled and said, "That man who brought your Qur'an back, he told me your story reminded him of his mother." Samira smiled faintly. "Then perhaps Allah used him as a mirror," she said. He nodded. "You know, I keep a Qur'an on my counter now, not for sale, just to remember what things are worth." She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "That's more valuable than gold." That evening, as the Maghrib adhan echoed across the rooftops, Samira stood and prayed. When she finished, she whispered, "Ya Allah, you took it from me so I could find you again. Forgive me." Later that night, she opened the first blank page and wrote beneath her father's words, "I once sold this Qur'an and lost my peace. I bought it back and found my Lord." She placed it on the shelf, this time in the center, where the sunlight could reach it. Years later, her eldest son found it there. He opened it gently, saw her note, and read aloud, "If you ever feel lost, my son, open this. It will lead you home." He smiled through tears and began to recite the same verses his mother once whispered before dawn. Some losses are not punishments. They are awakenings. The Qur'an does not need our protection. We need its presence. Sometimes Allah lets us lose what we love most, so we finally remember what we were meant to hold on to all along. Because faith, once lost, can still be found in tears, in forgiveness, and in the pages we forgot to open. If this story touched your heart, take a moment tonight to open your Qur'an, even if it's been years, because sometimes all Allah waits for is one page, one verse, one tear that returns you to Him. Subscribe to The Last Reminder and let your heart never forget again.